Hi there, Karen Roby with Adrian Kingsley-Hughes here for ZDNet. We're talking about Apple's Buy Innovation Only event. And Adrian, we're not going to talk today about the specifics, what we learned about the new phone, the watch, that kind of thing. Let's talk instead about the event itself. Are these big unveilings, these events, are they really necessary?
I don't think they are. I think, first off, everybody wants new shiny. So the people who want the new shiny stuff, they know new shiny is coming out. Generally, either they just go out and buy them, or it's usually when their upgrade cycles allows them to buy. There's other people who just run their phone until it just totally dies. I think these events are mostly for Apple to showcase its achievements over a year more than anything, maybe even to keep analysts happy. It's interesting that as Apple has shed off events for the iPad, events for MacBook Pros, and last year and this year we've seen a lot of products launched without any event. They just appear in the Apple Store. I think this one is mostly geared at Apple's achievements over the past 12 months. It's interesting that it falls so close to WWDC keynote, which makes it an odd event in many ways. The one event is aimed at developers, and this one's aimed at journalists, I think, mostly, but yet the content between the two are very similar. I think in 3 years, Apple's not going to have an iPhone event. I think the iPhone will probably just appear in the store and people will just come out and go, oh, there's a new iPhone, and buy it, or not. And Apple can save the time, save the money, just update the store, put a little tag on like they usually do, the store's down, and then when it reopens, everybody will be there buying iPhones again.
Well, and talk a little bit, Adrian, about, the Apple buyers in general. As you mentioned, they're going to come out, they're going to buy regardless. But with the phone cycles being different now, so talk about the buyers in general for Apple and the phone cycle, how all of that would work into whether or not we'd have an event still.
There's several different cycles, and they're increasing. You have people who want the latest every year. Those people will either be buying into Apple's own upgrade program, which is probably the easiest method for them to get a hold of a new iPhone, or they'll just be buying these phones outright. There's other people whose contracts allow them to upgrade, I think, but they'll be on more of like a 2-year or 3-year upgrade cycle. I think they're less interested in new products. If anything, the new product makes the thing that they're stuck with for 2 or 3 years look old and rubbishy very quickly. So I think that they would rather, if there was no new event, they would rather just the new product just came into the mix. Then there's a whole massive ecosystem of people who get hand-down phones, buy the cheap phone, hold on to the phone until it's in bits and barely needs to be resuscitated a few times. Those people don't care about the upgrade cycle. Those people really will just, their phone becomes obsolete or their phone breaks, and at that point they will be looking and going, what's Apple got for me at this point? Or maybe somebody's going to hand me down a phone, which is a very big ecosystem for phones. It's interesting just how broad Apple's ecosystem of old devices actually is, and how Apple is almost keeping that old device ecosystem alive by not cutting off old phones from iOS updates until they really cannot run them. So now we'll be, with iOS 13, the line will be drawn at the anything older than the iPhone 6S will be history. But 6S is quite old. And to have such old devices bolstering up the ecosystem for so long is helpful to Apple, when its main job now is to get people, after they've bought into the Apple hardware ecosystem, is to get them to buy software, get them to buy services. So the longer their devices last, the better it is for Apple, the better it is for consumers. The broader the ecosystem becomes, that's better for developers. And in that way, Apple in some ways is caught in its own yearly upgrade cycle, that it has to develop a phone in a year and have it out every year. iOS is in the same position. And yet most of its ecosystem relies on older stuff. And in that way, just as much as when a new MacBook Pro comes out, it's just a replacement for the old MacBook Pro. Eventually, the new iPhone will just be a replacement for the old iPhone, and it'll be less emphasis on it being new and more of better, and essentially just the place that you go for an upgrade.
Yeah, and it's, as consumers, it's kind of hard to impress us anymore, right, Adrian? I mean, unless they're coming out with something really exciting, the foldable, of course, with Samsung, everyone was excited about that, and we know where that stands right now, or we really don't know at this point where it stands. But until there's something really exciting, it kind of just makes the events, questionable as to whether or not they are necessary.
Yeah, I mean, it's twice as fast or twice as better. Or I think the thing that people would love the most is if it was half the price or had twice the battery life. I think those things would be the things that have people clamoring for new phones. Even maybe people who would be very have to keep their wallets firmly shut. But Apple doesn't want to deliver a half price iPhone, and I don't think it can deliver twice the battery life. So we're looking at better cameras, slightly better displays, different silicone. But essentially, it's a slab of glass and metal that people hold in their hands, and they look at the screen and they look at content on that screen. It's less about the hardware. The hardware has reached a plateau. Everybody's pretty much the same. It's now about what's on the phone. And Apple is looking at how they can capitalize on putting stuff on these devices rather than trying to broaden the ecosystem.
Yeah, cut the price in half, and we'll all be excited to watch these events, right?
Yeah, yeah. But otherwise, it's very predictable. The rumor mill for this event started over a year ago. I remember started before the launch last year. So we've been stewing, we've been marinating in rumors and supply chain chatter, and realizing that it's pretty close to the mark. At the end of the day, it's a smartphone. It can't really deviate that far away from that. And what Apple's doing mostly now is really just new phones for people who are somewhere on that upgrade cycle. It has to be better than something last year, and that's a trick. That's a hard trick to make a phone a product better than the one you bought last year and make it actually physically feel better. But the real market is for those products is a product for people whose phone is maybe 3 years old. For that, it's actually very easy to make a phone feel a lot better, a lot different, a lot more compelling. So Apple is looking at not people who bought last year, but people who have now got a phone that feels really old. So yeah, these events, they're losing their impetus. They're losing through rumors. They're losing their emphasis, and also through the idea that the upgrade cycle now is so long, so disjointed, and also smartphones are so ubiquitous. It's very hard to make people excited about something and make the price really high. $750 for is the entry price into the new iPhone. It's very hard to make that compelling.
Yep, got to agree with you, Adrian, on that. All right, well, thank you so much. If you want to learn more about Apple's most recent event, make sure you check out ZDNet.